Hello everyone. So we are here with our workshop called Building Cool Things with Google Maps. We have Alain, he's a Google developer expert, and he'll be teaching us some things about how we can integrate Google Maps with our hackathon projects as well. So over to you, Alain.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to get started and share my screen. There you go. You should be able to see my slides now. So yeah, this talk is about building cool things with Google Maps. And the reason why I wanted to do this talk is because typically we use Google Maps quite a bit. A lot of people use Google Maps these days, but they don't always realize that it's actually possible to build applications, to build features on top of Google Maps. And you can basically, extend Google Maps in a sense to add your own data to it, to add your own features to it, and really build very interesting stuff out of those maps. So I'll be sharing a few examples of that in a few minutes, in a few seconds. So Google Maps is extremely popular. It's pretty much everywhere these days. If you have a phone, if you have, many cars now do Android Auto, which is a way to use Google Maps navigation in your car and lots of other Google stuff associated to it. And this Google Maps that come from Google, they have an API. There's an open API that we can use. And we can use it to access the map, access what's on it, work with that data, add some data to the map, and basically customize pretty much everything. And I know that it's something that developers, sometimes they know about it, but even when they know about it, they don't want to dive into it because they think, oh, a map, that's probably super complex, right? It's a lot of graphics and vectors and stuff, has to be super complex. So they don't even want to take a look at the API because they're a little bit scared of what's behind it. But the thing is, the Google Maps API is really, really simple. And you can really customize a map with just a few lines of code. So that's what we're going to take a look at. I'm going to start with simple examples, simple maps. We're going to add some items to it, see that it's really not a lot of code that's needed to do that. And yeah, I'll show you a few examples of applications that look great, are useful, and are not that difficult to build. So before I get into that, who am I? My name is Alain. You can just call me Al, that works too. I'm a Java developer since a very long time. I started back in 2006, and I got into front-end development, web development, around 2011 with AngularJS back then. And these days, I'm the organizer of the Sacramento Angular Meetup Group and co-organizer of the GDG Sacramento group. I'm also a Google developer expert in Angular, Google Maps, and web technologies. And what I do, my day job right now is actually to run my own company called Angular Training, where I teach people how to do web development with Angular, React, JavaScript, TypeScript. And that's about 40% of what I do, live training, live teaching. And the rest of the time I do consulting, also writing blog posts, doing talks like this, speaking at conferences, all of that. That's part of the package of all of the things that I do. So with that in mind, I moved to California back in 2014. And back then, my business, what I was doing, was mostly focused on Google Maps. I was building a lot of apps for clients. And these are just a few examples to show you that you can take Google Maps and really turn it into something different, really add your own customization to it, and yeah, make it fit any use case. So the one to the left, this was a real estate application for land developers in Texas. So they wanted to be able to map plots of land. So these are the purple polygon here. It's showing the lot of that property, basically, what amount of ground they cover, and you can basically rotate the map around, see what areas are included or excluded from that property. And it was an app that would display those extra layers of aerial image. So we have a satellite image in the top right corner, displaying polygons, extra info. When we clicked on the map, we could add some layers, remove them, zoom in, zoom out, all of these sort of things. But all based on the map data that comes from Google. So we didn't have to buy any of this. We didn't have to create any of this. All we did was take some data set that the company had and put it on that map, basically. The other example here is a Facebook page for a store in Australia. So they wanted a store finder, a store locator, which is basically showing all of their locations. So you would pick a city, you would pick a place, and it would say, hey, here are all of the stores nearest to us. You can see the styling of the map is different. It has like this 3D map, paper map aspect to it. So that was done with some CSS on top of Google Maps. The markers are different. All of that was the customization that was done. And the one on the top right corner, so that's a heat map. So this one was a company that wanted to see where their customers are located, so that they would know where to open new stores in Washington State, around Seattle. So of course, the areas in red are where most of the customers are concentrated, and you have the other areas around to show where most of their clients come from. And just like that, in 1 second, they can see a very meaningful piece of information that they don't have in a spreadsheet with thousands of names and addresses, right? This gives you a very different way to visualize the info. And in just a few seconds, you can decide, okay, this area here is full red and we don't even have a store here. So we probably need to open one in that area, for instance. So very meaningful, very helpful information, very visual as well. So I see some questions in the chat already. That's great. So is the Google Maps API available for free for development, or is it a subscription system? So this is always changing. The way Google does these things, the way payment works and everything changes all the time. That said, if you are building your own test application that's just going to be used by you and maybe a few other people, it's going to be 100% free. You're never going to pay for that, pretty much. The way it works right now is that Google Maps, you need a key. So you have to you need a Google account. You get an API key from Google, and that key allows you to use the API and display your own maps. Now, why do they ask you for a key? It's because they are going to track your usage. And if your map gets displayed millions of times every month, of course, it's going to use a lot of resources. And at that point, you're going to have to pay for something. So there's a page on the Google Maps API website where they would give you more pricing info. And basically, the way it is right now is that the first $100 per month is included for free. So as long as you don't use more than $100, it's free. They basically remove that initial 100 no matter what. And then when you go over that, you would start paying. So for the most part, it's getting to $100 would require really using it quite a bit. I think I can find that info in here. I'll show that to you right away. I found the pricing page here. Google Maps flexible pricing, daily quotas and everything. So 25,500 map loads per month for no charge. So, displaying 25,000 times your map per month, that's a lot, right? And that's free. And actually increase it to $200 per month for no charge. So basically, yeah, if you use, and you can simulate the cost. So if you're using, let's say, the map JavaScript API, you're expecting 25,000 requests per month, which would be a lot already. This would cost 175, which basically means it's zero because the first $200 are free. So the limits are pretty high, right? In order to pay, you really have to build something that gets really, really, really popular. Street View API, same thing. So you can customize, increase the numbers, see how the pricing works based on what you're using. So it's a pretty good tool. And yeah, basically you can play with it for free. That's for sure. You can start doing things. It will not cost anything unless you start getting popular and have your app being used by a lot of people. So since we're talking about working with the Google Maps API, what does a map developer do? One of the main things we do when we work with Google Maps is we add layers of data and features to a map. So that's pretty much what I showed you here, right? Adding a heat map on top of the Google Maps layer, drawing shapes like we did here for this real estate app, or just adding some markers for a store locator application. So adding layers of data and features to a map, these features can be markers, polygons, filters. You can create your own image. If you have lots of image info from a specific area and want to overlay that, you can also do it. So there's ways to really take over the entire rendering of the map and add your own layers, your own imagery on top of it. So that's also a possibility. So yeah, traveler website, real estate website, store locator. These are some of the most common use cases. If you go to any store website, like, Home Depot, Starbucks, whatever, you name it, they're going to have some sort of store locator where you enter an address and it's going to show you all of the closest stores next to you, right? So that's a typical use case, which basically kept me busy when I was doing a lot of Google Maps work because many different brands wanted their own store locator. So I've built quite a few of those in the past. And another one that there's a video link here. I'm not sure if the video is still up. Yeah, maybe it is. Or not. It showed up for 1 second and then went away. So that one was it was basically Uber for garbage collection. So a company that has a lot of trash, they would go to that app and say, hey, come pick up like 10 bags tomorrow because we have too much trash going on right now. So it was like a Uber, but to call for a trash service to come and pick up many bags of trash. And the app looked pretty much like Uber. The company, they wanted me to build this like Uber. So it was pretty much the same user interface where you would be able to, drop a pin where you want the drop to happen, and they would come and pick up the trash at that place. So yeah, lots of different use cases, lots of different things that we can build on top of a map. So now we are hackers, so we want to see some code. So let's take a look at what I'm calling the hello world of Google Maps. Very basic example. So this is a map in Australia, and it just centered on one specific place, and it's just displaying that map on any website. So it's basically embedding a Google map on a website centered on a specific location. That's all there is to it. The code behind this is pretty straightforward. So the HTML, all we do in it is include a script. Make this bigger in case it's not super big from what I'm sharing here. I can't zoom that much. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So we just include one script, which is going to be all of the Maps API JavaScript code. And we add a div with an ID of map. That's a container where the map is going to be displayed, basically, in our HTML. And then in our JavaScript code, we do the following, which is creating the map. So a new Google Maps map. We specify what is the target, which HTML element is going to display the map. So in our case, it is the div with the ID of map. And then we pass the config of the map. So the center, latitude, longitude, and a zoom level of 8. So the zoom levels in Google Maps, they go from 1 to 20. So 8 is kind of 50, almost 50%. And it really depends on what you want to do. But basically, right now it's 8. If I click one time on the plus button, it will be 9. Now it's 10. Now it's 11. Now it's 12. And then you can zoom in, zoom out, increase, decrease, and such. So yeah, that one line of code here does all of that. It gives you the following UI with a map displayed on the screen with the default controls available. You have the Street View guide that you can drop on the map, and everything just works. You have access to all of this. And again, that's all the code we needed, right? Create the map, display it on that element, and done. So pretty straightforward, and already not super verbose, right? It's pretty much the basics. And yeah, the HTML just need one place where we're going to display that map, and that's it. Your API key, that's where it goes. So you need to pass it to the script when the JavaScript gets loaded. If you don't do that, Google Maps is going to display your key is not valid. It's going to put a layer on top of it saying you cannot use that map, you don't have a proper key and such. So the key is required, but again, with that key, you get $200 per month of free usage, which as we saw is over 30,000 loads of the map. So that's a lot. So that's a basic map. Now, this one, of course, is not the most interesting thing because it's just displaying a default Google map with no features added to it. If we want to add some features, one of the most common thing we would add to a Google map is what Google Maps calls a marker. So a marker is really that pin that gets displayed on the map. So the red pin here, this is a marker. And in order to create a marker, it's very similar to how we create a map. So we create a map, we center it on Australia, we give a zoom level of 4, so we see the entire country, and then we add a marker, so a new Google Maps marker. We give it a position, we pass the map as a parameter, so the marker gets displayed on that specific map, and we give it a title, which is Hello World. Title is going to show up when we go over the marker like this. So that's a little bit more useful. Now we can add some custom markers to the map. The only difficult part in this is to get a proper latitude and longitude. But to do that, again, with Google Maps, it's pretty straightforward. I can just go to maps.google.com. I can go to any place, and well, I'm going to pick one place in Australia to be realistic here. Scrolling. This is Australia. Let's say I wanted to add a pin down here in Melbourne. So if you want to be very precise, you can zoom in, you pick the place that you want to share, you right click on it and see right away it gives us latitude and longitude. So just a right click on the map and you get that info. And then you can basically left click and it copies the latitude and longitude to the clipboard. So then I can just go back to my map. Let's see, they have a live sample here. So I'll do that. So you can see that I can add a second marker pretty easily. Make this bigger. So this is the map center of Sydney. I'm going to add my own new Google Maps marker. And the parameters are, so the position with the latitude and the longitude. That's where I can paste my longitude that I got from Google Maps earlier. And position. Map, and the title is probably not even needed at that point. There you go. It is going to get added and displayed. And now if I move, there we go. That's my marker on Melbourne at that exact same intersection that I picked earlier. So I created a map with a marker. And if we change that marker in JavaScript, if you change the latitude and longitude to a different value, as soon as you set a new value, the marker would move to that place. So you can use that to do real-time tracking of something, for instance, real-time tracking of a Uber, something going on, a race cars around the track, whatever. Any use case is possible. As long as you get latitude and longitude, you update it, and this little marker would move to the right place. So yeah, that's how we can add markers to the map easily. If I wanted a second one, let's say I'm going to add another one close by. I'm going to get another latitude, longitude, go back here, and do just one more to show you that there's no limits in here. Here we go. Now I have two of them close by in Melbourne. So you can, map any locations easily. Just have these few lines of JavaScript can be shipped on a website, and you display those locations on the map. So with that in mind, we saw how to add a marker. The thing is, those markers, they are the default ones from Google Maps. And of course, most of the time, people want to do different stuff. They want to customize the marker to display their own icon. So the API allows us to do this. We have support for complex marker icons. So here, for instance, they use these little flags. And the way it works is that when we create our marker, we pass an icon as a parameter. That icon is an image object that has a URL to the icon we want to display. And we can decide if we use, so where the image starts, what its size and all of that. Is the origin 0, 0, or do we want to display the icon next to the location, for instance? So you can move the icon around the location, decide how to size it and all of that stuff. But basically, it's an image. So you put an image on your marker and it's going to be displayed at the right place. So this example is a pretty good one. I'll put that link in the chat in case you want to take a look. Can I even do that? Oh, looks like I'm not logged in, so I cannot add comments, maybe. Yeah. In any case, the link to all of my slides is going to be at the end of the presentation. So if you grab that link, you'll have access to everything. All of these clickable links are going to be available. So yeah, you get an image URL, you can customize what these markers are going to look like on your map. Easy enough. Now, what about interactions? Because of course, adding information on the map is good, but we also want to let the user do some things with our data. Maybe we want to handle clicks or do something when there's a drag and drop going on, or customize the information based on user interaction. So the base concept that the Google Maps API gives us is what they call an info window, which is something like this. When you click a marker, the info window opens and displays some HTML. So the info window works in a very similar fashion as our maps and our marker. It's an object, new Google Maps info window. The content is a string, which could be any HTML. And then in order to render that info window, what we did here is that we have a marker. We add a click listener to that marker. And when the marker is clicked on, we do info window.open. We open at the location of the marker. We add a label, the map, everything. And that's going to display the info window at that location where the user clicked. So that's a behavior we see right here. I can open it, close it, and I added some even more information on the map now and some interactions with that click handler. Now, Google Maps features. So this is something I wanted to showcase because many people use Google Maps every day. I know that's my case, but still there's a lot of hidden features in Google Maps or things that you don't always know about, but are still pretty good, pretty useful, and pretty powerful. So getting the latitude, longitude of any place on the planet, I showed it to you already. I did an example of that. You can right-click on the map, you get the latitude and longitude. If you know a specific address and you click on it, the latitude and longitude is also going to be available somewhere on here. Maybe if I click on the marker, it's a little bit less obvious that way because while typically people are not really looking for the latitude and longitude, they just want to know where the place is. Yeah, you can right-click next to it and have the lat long. That's definitely the easiest. Good thing about this is it also works with a neighborhood or a county or anything, right? It doesn't have to be a very specific location, a pinpoint on the map. If I look for El Dorado County, it can show me this entire county with the boundary of the county. So we can get access to a lot more information than just things that are pinpointed on the map, just from Google Maps itself. If you want to know the boundaries between counties or cities, what are the boundaries of Sacramento, for instance? I can just look for Sacramento, CA, and it's showing up here with that red border, so I can see the shape of Sacramento pretty easily. So these are some of the cool things we have available. Another one that that used to get a lot better, but has not evolved that much over the past few years, the 3D view and tilt. So if you go to a place that has good data, enough data in satellite view, yeah, in satellite view, you get that 3D button. And then you have a full 3D view in maps, where you can see the buildings in 3D, the trees, the cars even, and you can rotate the map in 3D. Yeah, this is pretty powerful. Even more so when you know that these features, they also work with the Google Maps API. So this can be accessible, this can be used with our own data on that map, our own markers, our own anything that we add on top of that map, which makes it a lot better, because basically, yeah, you can add info in 3 dimensions, and yeah, you can navigate the world in 3D, which sometimes can be pretty helpful. Rotate around and everything. So 3D view plus tilt, that's one thing that I liked a lot. And the other one that is even crazier, I would say, is the Street View history. So this one is a little bit more hidden. You have to explore quite a bit in order to find it. But Street View history is great because you can just go to a place. And a good thing in Sacramento is that the area is pretty dynamic. So things are changing a lot. So I can go to any place. I go to the Street View mode. And from there, I can click on that little button in the top left corner and see what the place looked like in the past. So I can go back to Street View back in 2009, for instance, and see what has changed between back then and now. There's less buildings, I can tell. Yeah, things have grown a little bit around here. And you can go back to 2022 or 2018. Basically, you can see how a place evolved over time, which is great. I mean, it gives us, you can go anywhere in the world and basically explore what it looks like now, what it looked like 5, 10, 20 years before, which is also something that can be pretty interesting to build features on. Being able to time travel to a different place in the past and see what it was like back then. So yeah, history is one of my favorites, pretty impressive. And the number of data points is hard to predict, though this really depends on, we can see the trees growing. It really depends on the area. So in the US, the coverage is pretty good. Around Sacramento, pretty good. California, typically, because close from Google, we get a lot of Street View data, pretty much up to date. So every year or so, you can see that there's new, fresh Street View data. But yeah, in other countries or other places, it's not that often that they refresh. So you cannot expect to see updates every year or that sort of thing. But still, it is pretty interesting to be able to look back in the past what a place looked like back then. So back to the Google Maps JavaScript API, because that's really what we use to build features, right? To add features to a map. What's important to know is that everything we see on maps.google.com, which is the Google Maps that we know, that we use, that I was using a few minutes ago, is different from Google Maps API. And what I mean by this is that some of the features we see on the regular Google Maps are not available yet. in the Google Maps API. It's basically a subset of Google Maps. So for instance, if I go to this one and switch to the satellite view, you'll see that even if I have Street View, I believe I'm not going to have the history for that one. Yeah. So same experience as Google Maps typically, but the history is not available when we use the API. I can still rotate around. I can still do a lot of the Street View things, but the history is not there. If I did view on Google Maps, it would open the full Google Maps website, and there I would have all of the features. So there are some differences like this in the API that are slightly different from the actual Google Maps itself. So some features are specific to maps.google.com, and you can't have them on your own map yet. I'm saying yet because in many cases it just becomes available later. And in order to learn about all of these features, this is the Google Maps JavaScript API v3 reference, which was updated last week, so that's pretty recent. And it gives you all of the objects, all of the things that we can use and display on the map. So that includes, we can customize the controls, the markers, info window, we talked about them, polygons. So if you want to draw polygons on the map, areas, and that sort of thing. So the full API is basically described in here. It's very much like a Java doc, meaning that you have the name of the objects, and when you click on them, it's going to describe all of the methods, all of the events you can listen to, all of the properties. And there should be some examples, I believe, as well. Maybe not for the API itself, but the samples are, yes, just the next tab here, where you have samples for every single feature. So drawing on the map, customizing the map, adding some styles, using a night mode, all of these sorts of things are now available. On top of just interacting with the map and adding features to it, the API gives us ways to do geocoding. So geocoding basically means you use a latitude and a longitude, and you get an address out of it. So if you want to extract an address out of latitude and longitude, that's called geocoding. Reverse geocoding is the opposite. You give an address, gives you a latitude and longitude. So you can do both with Google Maps, which is very useful because typically if you ever have to build something with Google Maps, your input is not going to be latitudes and longitudes. Usually people work with addresses in the real world. So you will have a list of addresses to deal with, and you can geocode them into latitudes and longitudes using the API. Same with places. So the places API, that's the access to all of the business info that gets displayed on Google Maps. So if you want to, let's say, get all of the fast foods in a specific area, you can make a request to that Google Places, and it's going to return all of those things. And not only just the place, but every single piece of info you would see on Google Maps, which is always increasing. Let's say I pick that restaurant. It's going to give me the phone number, the website URL, the opening times and days and everything. You would get that from the Places API, but as JSON, right? You make an HTTP request to it, you receive JSON data, and you can use it any way you want, even outside of Google Maps, for instance, right? If you wanted to build a service that just gets the opening and closing time of all of the restaurants in a specific area, you can use Google Places to do that and request the data and then display it on a different place. Directions are, of course, an important thing. So getting the direction from one place to another, there's an API for that is going to give you the directions turn by turn. And distance matrix, that's also a pretty good one. If you want to do some route planning, and let's say you have to go to 5 different locations and you don't know in which order to go there, which one is the closest from which and such, the distance matrix is going to do that. So it's going to take all of your destinations and it's going to tell you the distance between every single one of them, creating a matrix of all of the distances, which can be pretty useful as well. So these are some of the other APIs that are available and that return JSON data for the most part. And of course, if you have any questions on any of this, feel free to use the comments so I can take a look and answer your questions live. So shapes are another thing we can draw on the map. Show you an example here where they decide to draw a polygon, the Bermuda Triangle on a Google map. So basically a red triangle between 3 different latitudes and longitudes. So it's a polygon object. It takes the coordinates of the triangle. You can customize the color, the opacity, the weight of the stroke, fill color, fill opacity. So customize all of the look and feel of that polygon, right? Does it have a border or not? How big is that border? What's the color of the border? All of that you can change and yeah, decide to display it any way you want. For instance, if I wanted to make that blue, oops, there we go. Now the border here is blue. And if I wanted to make the fill color green, it's not going to look great, but that's okay. Now it's green. So pretty straightforward, right? And the nice thing about the Google Maps API is that it's pretty easy to start from an example like this one, just tweak it a little bit, and then you have your own result, your own customized output from the API. They also have a drawing manager. Yep. So the drawing manager is something pretty good. It's basically, this one isn't working anymore. Let's see if we have an example here. Drawing manager. Let's take a look at that. Library. So drawing tools can be added to the map. That's what they look like up here. And you can use that to let the user edit the map and basically add their own polygons, lines, and everything. So you can really develop your own backend in a sense and have people add their own, markers and stuff and then save that. It's web-based, so the output would be JSON data. You can save that to a database or a file and then load the map later on, get that data downloaded and re-render it. So you can really use that as an editor, data editor of things that get added to a map pretty easily. So the library is it's a parameter that has to be added when we load the API script. Libraries equals drawing, and then it just gets added to the map like this. So new Google Maps drawing manager, where we want it to show up on the map. Do we show the drawing controls? Different options that we can enable or disable. So you could, for instance, disable circle and marker by removing them from there. You can make it more restrictive if you want. Here, everything was enabled. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. That, again, we get I like to say for free, because really, unless you have tens of thousands of users, it's really free. So yeah. Styling the map, that's also a big one, because while everybody's kind of used to the default Google Maps style with these shades of gray and green and blue and orange, right? So this makes the maps all look pretty much the same, but we can actually change that. We can customize those styles and make the maps a lot more interesting. And it's to the point that now there are websites like this one, snazzymaps.com, where people create their own styles and make them available to the rest of the world. So if you like black and white, you can use a grayscale app, dark mode, different styles of colors. And in this styling, you can remove the labels or decide to have just a few of the labels. So here they removed everything, for instance. It's really just the streets, but there is no names of any place whatsoever. This is still Google Maps, but with a different style applied to it. Different colors, different style. And yeah, so you can use some styles to emphasize parks, for instance, or remove the roads, or display only the roads and not the parks, or any of these things are possible, basically. They provide styling for everything, and you can really get creative. And yeah, as you can see, people do all sort of stuff with that. Yeah, this one is highways only, for instance. So it's just black and red are the highways. So no water, no cities, nothing. Again, this is still Google Maps, but now focused on rendering the highways and nothing else. And the style is, it's not CSS, but it's a JSON object where you decide what these things are going to look like. So for instance, here they decide that all of the icons are off. Administrative geometry, so that's the name of the towns and everything, are pretty light, 20, and they have a black color, so we see them, but yeah, showing pretty dark, not super visible. And yeah, you can really customize that any way you want, so it's super powerful, super interesting. And they even provide a wizard for that on the Google Maps website, or they change it. Google Maps style wizard, where you can basically answer a few questions. Yeah, they change the URL. But yeah, you can really decide from there and start from a template like this one, retro, and then you can adjust the density. So do I want to keep the roads, or just 75% of them, 30%, or remove them all? And now I have a map with no roads at all. Landmarks, same thing. So if you want to remove the markers with the big businesses, the parks and everything, you can do that. Or you can keep just a few. So really, there's no limit to what can be done here. I can just remove all landmarks, all labels, all roads, and then it's just pretty empty. And change the colors of any of these things as well. So yeah, it shows you all of the options. Do I want to see the airports? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes and display them in yellow. Use a heavy weight. And let's see what this does. Not sure it actually applied, because I don't see any airport. There should be some. But yeah, you get the idea. That's really how it works. And then when you say finish, you can export your JSON config and use it in your own Google Map. And then you have that style applied to it. So there's one couple more last things I want to talk about. This one is becoming more and more common, using indoor maps for stores and buildings. Same thing, it really depends where you are located. But if you're in Silicon Valley, basically every single store down there, they have their own map in it for some reason. So if I go to a mall and zoom in, you can see that the map displays the inside of the building, what are the different businesses inside. And well, this one has just one level, so it doesn't give us more details. But if it was a building with multiple levels, let's say I can go to the Googleplex, right there. Not here, a little bit down there. If I zoom on the Google building, it would show me inside. No, oh, it used to. Yeah, maybe they found out it's not a good idea to show where the meeting rooms are and the names of everything. So this is now removed. Let's see, these guys. No, Target doesn't seem to have much here. Oh, this one, on the other hand, is very precise. Restaurant, you can see the tables and everything within the restaurant. This is helpful in, I know Home Depot is pretty good with that too. So you can find something just from the map, you know which area you have to walk to because it's usually big. So being able to find the right place inside the store itself is helpful. And yeah, if you have multiple stories, you can pick first floor, second floor, and such. And it would show all of the different layouts for these. Yeah, we see that in here. 1, 2, 3, basement 1, basically, and you can navigate within that building. The last one I had was traffic and directions, including traffic predictions and transit data, which are also available in the API. So if you want to build something that's based on, that needs traffic prediction, for instance, this is pretty good. And it works. I use it a lot. So for instance, my basic use case for this is, let's say tomorrow morning I have to go at a soccer game of my son in Davis. So the soccer club in Davis is right there. I want to get the directions from home, but I don't want the directions for right now because I'm going tomorrow. So you can use that and say arrive by, and I would say I need to be there by 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, right? And it would tell me leave around 7:50 a.m. to be there on time because the traffic at that time typically takes about 30 to 40 minutes on average. And based on the time of day, these estimates would be different. So this is super powerful because depending on where you're going, the amount of time to get there can be a lot more or a lot less. If I use the Googleplex, for instance, this can be crazy. So tomorrow morning would be fine, 1 hour 50 to 2 hours. But if I pick, let's say Monday morning, that would be a different story, especially at commute time. Yeah, now we are in 3 hours, 10 minutes. It would plan a different itinerary to go there, avoiding all of the big interstates, basically. So this is super powerful, right? It's something that allows you to anticipate, plan in advance, and you can get that data from the API as well. So you can really build your own software that's going to use that same data, but then provide different information, do some planning and everything around that, which is pretty powerful. And now it also includes transit, so public transportation, so bus, light rail, trains, all of it. You can use all of that as well. And it's pretty powerful, pretty accurate too. So that's also something that's evolved quite a bit in Google Maps. So that's my overview of all things Google Maps related. That's really, there's a lot more to it. It's a big world, right? And the product is always evolving. The API is always evolving. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. Once you start working with it, the amount of things you can build with Google Maps, the extent of what's possible is really huge. So yeah, I would suggest take a look at an example, try to build upon it, and yeah, basically you're gonna get hooked, and then you'll want to do more maps for sure.
Thank you so much, Alain, for this great presentation about how we can utilize Google Maps in
You're welcome.
our projects. Hopefully, we'll see some submissions with Google Map integrated in it. Just, I don't see any questions in particular. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, and you can scan the QR code to access the slides as well if you want, and you have all of the links and everything in there.
Yeah. And I'll post this link in on Discord as well, so you can access from there. Seems like nobody has any questions, Alain.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks a lot for coming to the workshop. Thanks for attending. Thanks for your feedback in the comments. Always good to know that you got a lot of info out of it. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the hackathon, and good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Alain.
No
Have a
problem.
nice
Thank you. Bye.
Just wanted to inform everybody that we are having our CTF Capture the Flag event. So check on Discord for more about that. Thanks a lot.